Climate events such as droughts, floods and storms can lead to impacts that severely disrupt societies and livelihoods. Such events are expected to become more severe due to climate change. Most climate impact studies have focused on understanding impacts within the same region in which the climate event, such as a flood, occurred. As a result, these studies have often overlooked impacts that occurred at distant locations. Our project is focused on understanding how the risks of climate impacts can cascade across borders. For example, how might severe flooding in Thailand impact individuals in Berlin? This is important because climate impacts can have knock-on effects that may escalate through security relations, international trade, financial markets or migration. To study this, Cascades proposes a conceptual framework and accompanying terminology to help describe and analyse cross-border climate impacts and inform adaptation policies. As part of this framework, Cascades has developed a number of figures to help users better visualise and understand different types of climate triggers, categories of cross-border impacts, the scales and dynamics of impact transmission, the targets and dynamics of responses, and the socio-economic and environmental context, hence all factors and processes influencing impacts today and in the future. Here's an example of how our project's conceptual framework can be used to better understand and adapt to the risks associated with cascading climate impacts. In 2011, Thailand experienced the longest duration flooding event in its recorded history. 13.6 million people across Thailand were affected. 800 people lost their lives, and the impacts of these floods went beyond Thailand's borders. The Bangkok region is home to large industrial parks that host numerous high-value manufacturing concerns. Many of these were located close to coastal port facilities to reduce transportation costs. 7 parks supplying key components to the automobile and electronics industries were badly flooded. This led to enormous losses throughout Asia and beyond. Ripple effects on the global economy were estimated to have reduced Japan's fourth quarter 2011 manufacturing production index by 2.4%. The impacts of the floods were severe for a number of reasons. Overseas investors failed to anticipate the high likelihood of flooding when locating facilities in the region. Weaknesses of flood defences were exacerbated by local land subsidence that magnified exposure to the hazard, and efforts to access alternative supply networks and procurement sources to help offset the impacts were not effective. Cascades' conceptual framework is important as it helps users better understand and consider how to respond to the risks of cascading climate impacts.